Coming up on Wrestling Life.
If you can get those people up off their seats, like all of the floor seats and people in the arena, which I used to do many times, and used to 1, 2, and kick. I'd be like, kick, and we'd get it so close, me and the talent. And man, it was just, and when people just rise off their seats and thinks that's the finish of the match, like it made me feel great, man. I was like, yeah, like we got him.
Welcome to Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, the show that features real talk from real talent.
Hello everyone and welcome to Wrestling Life once again. What an awesome show this is going to be. I am about to be speaking to the third man in the ring for some of pro wrestling's most iconic moments. From The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18, Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle's infamous and terrifyingly brutal King of the Ring clash. Heck, this guy's career with the WWF goes so far back that he even counted the 3 count for the 1-2-3 Kid shocking win over Razor Ramon back in 1993. This promises to be a fantastic conversation with the referee that defined our childhood fandom. But before I get to that, just a very quick one. As always, please subscribe to the show and follow us on your podcasting platform of choice if you haven't done so already, and share this episode with a friend. Wrestling Life is all about sharing real talk from real talent, and we need you to keep doing what we're doing and speaking to fantastic guests like today. I'm your host, Ben Veal. Without further ado, it's a real pleasure to introduce the one and only Mr. Mike Chioda. Mike, how are you today, my friend?
Man, I'm great, Ben. Thank you for that kind words and introductory. I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. I think you left a few matches out, maybe.
I think you have covered a lot in your career. I mean, look, that's what I want to get to. I mean, look, 35 years as a professional wrestling referee. I mean, that is incredible staying power.
Yeah.
What's been the secret to your longevity, do you think, Mike?
Well, I mean, longevity was, I started off with production. So it was Tony Chimmel and I running around driving the ring trucks. Started full time back like 1985, 86 with WWE, and we started with production. We had our own ring crew based out of New Jersey. We had our own truck, our own ring. We'd bring the steel cages, and then in '87 it became out. Like Chief Jay Strombo and Gorilla, and some guys wanted to make me a referee, which I was growing up with Joey Morella in the business, and Joey Morella, of course, one of an icon, legend himself in the referee industry. It's as far as all the matches as he's done. Growing up with Joey was teaching me a lot. I mean, of course, he did the Andre Hulk Hogan match at WrestleMania. Of course, you probably don't forget, 92 in Wembley Stadium in London. Yeah, when he did Bret Bulldog, and that was a fantastic match. Crowd was unbelievable, 82,000 people in London. I mean, it was just that was something. Taker's entrance that night, everything that show was just phenomenal. And Gorilla always told me, he told Joey, longevity in his business. Of course, you were 18, 19, you wanted to be a wrestler maybe, and you look at all these guys that are jacked and get these big pops from the crowd reactions and the way they controlled the crowds, the old school talent back in the day. Everybody was flamboyant. When you had Ric Flair and you had Sting on the other side, and then you had Hulk Hogan, all the characters, man, the Honky Tonk Man to the Rockers to Shawn Michaels coming out of that double tag. I mean, he wanted to be a wrestler, So I remember just one day I was taking bumps with Barry Horowitz. We had the ring set up, and Barry Horowitz and Steve Lombardi taking bumps with them, and Gorilla comes up and he goes, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just playing around in the ring and just," he goes, "Well, referee doesn't fucking bump like that. You're not supposed to bump like one of the boys." And I'm like, "Oh shit," So, he explained to me longevity in his business, like I tell my son Joey at the time. He said was refereeing. You can have a good 5-year run, you can have a 10-year run as a wrestler or whatever, but there's very few wrestlers that'll have a good 20 or 30-year run. And I mean, he was right. Whether it was Flair, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, and he had so many other, Shawn Michaels, there was only a handful or maybe 2 handfuls of guys that had really long careers in his business, So, and he said longevity is a referee. You could be, if you're a good referee, you can have a long career as being a referee. And he was right.
And you say about the bump. I mean, you have taken some hellacious bumps in your time, Mike.
Right.
I mean, so you have to learn a different way to bump, because obviously the ref gets bumped, you are out of there, aren't you? So
Right.
you have to learn it's a very different art form, isn't it, in terms of the referee storytelling?
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, they really don't want referees over 6 feet tall. Referees are a lot shorter, 5 foot something, 5'6", 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", whatever. And you just had, you're in there with big guys, and the way, if a wrestler's going to throw a punch, you had to bump differently. Either get knocked out right away, but you didn't take a flat back, or you didn't bump like one of the boys. You didn't fly around like a fish. Some of the guys would, bump like a fish, or and over bump sometimes. But you had to bump differently as a referee, and that's the way you were trained. By a lot of old school talent and stuff like that. So, and there's different ways when you take a big bump, whether you come out of it. And when you come out of it, you just don't come out of a bump laying on the canvas, and you just don't get straight up. You got to kind of wake yourself up. You're groggy. You're trying to get to the ropes. You're trying to get back into the match. When your spot's coming up, but you need to kind of sell that way about getting back into the match. You just don't pop right back up like the Undertaker.
Yeah.
But it's just different ways of being a referee. There's so many things that a referee has to do in the ring, and just I think people really don't understand how much responsibility as a referee you have in that ring.
Yeah, well, talk us through it, because I'm really interested in kind of what the secret is to being the third man in the ring, because I've always found that role of a referee so fascinating as a fan. Like, you are so central to the action and the storytelling and relaying instructions to the talent from the back. But at the same time, in many ways, perhaps your most important role is to actually be, pretty much invisible, and to not distract from the action that's taking place until there's a point for you to be more present. I mean, would you agree with that, or what's your perspective as a referee?
No, it is. I mean, when a manager is distracting a referee can't be there too long. You can't sit there and just stand there and talk to him for 5 to 8 seconds, or 10 seconds seems like a lifetime in the ring. It should only be for a few seconds. One of the managers over the years, I mean, there's plenty that I worked with over Jimmy Hart, and so many, all the way up to Paulie Heyman. Paul Heyman and Jimmy Hart, and them guys were the best, because they would act like they're trying to get in the ring. They would move down to the end of the ropes. They would try to do this. They would move around, keep you busy, as like, as a referee you shouldn't just be standing there having a conversation with the guy. Like, hey, you should get down. Oh yeah, you should get down, and you're not allowed in the ring. I mean, it's just certain managers would work with the referees so well.
Yeah.
And those two being outstanding, which, so many others, like Teddy Long when he was a manager and so forth. But
do you think that's because Teddy was a referee first, wasn't he? Is that
exactly?
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So he got it.
Right. Oh, he definitely got it. And it's for a referee, a referee has to give cues, times. So we have to give cues going off the air, going to commercial break, coming back on the commercial break. We have to relay messages from Gorilla, from Vince to Gorilla to us. We have to call spots in the ring. Sometimes the boys are calling spots in the ring on the fly. You have to make sure you maintain your counts and maintain your authority in the ring and stuff. If you don't maintain, your authority, and as a referee, you should be in shots at times and out of shots at certain times. You shouldn't be in the way. A lot of referees, like you can't oversell every bump. Like, if you're going to oversell a big punch, and what is the thing coming off the 20-foot ladder? It's the same sell as you're selling a punch. Or a referee's got to sell something that's really over the top at times, not something you see every night in the match. Don't go into business for yourself. Be in there for the boys. I mean, do what a referee does, like call it down the middle. You don't play 75% to the heel if you like that heel, and 25% of them. You call it right down the middle every match, 50-50. Just do your job.
But there's a point, isn't there, where you stop being invisible? And I'd say the point for you is when the Mike Chioda chant started up. I mean, you have an incredibly chantable name. But obviously
that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean that's a real badge of respect, isn't it, for those fans like me?
And that was thanks to like UK and the European crowd, at WrestleMania, coming off to WrestleMania, man. That's thanks to the UK and European crowd, man.
Is that when you first heard it?
That. Yeah, that was that night with Randy Orton and Sheamus in the match, and Randy's like, two baby faces here. They're not interested in the match.
Yeah.
And he's like looking at me going, they're fucking chanting your name. And I'm like, I know. I don't feel like getting up to the second rope and going, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I couldn't do it. But I was soaking it in. in, man. Yeah, man, it was fantastic.
But as I say, I mean, you're that kind of link, aren't you, towards an era that we love? Talking about in the intro at the start about the 1, 2, 3 Kid and Razor, those early Monday Night Raw shows. I mean, I was a fan of 1992. That was what got me hooked. Right. And obviously my fandom has then led me back to the 70s and the 80s, and I've caught up. But I was all about the big, colourful early 90s characters, Doink the Clown and Crush and Repo Man. That was what got me hooked as an 8-year-old.
Yeah, Demolition and all those guys.
Yeah. So I think
wins.
all the gimmicks. So like that, you're kind of that link, aren't you, in a way? Because and then you went through the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression era right up to present day, and I think
that's the one thing I do miss, Ben, is all the characters and the gimmicks, between the honky tonk man, the Greg the Valiant Hammer time, the robes, the flashy robes and everything. I mean, the Piper's Pit, all the gimmicks they used to do. And it was just so much fun back in the 80s and 90s into the Attitude Era. And then the Attitude Era just fucking blew up. It was amazing,
I mean, I've been on a 30-year campaign to bring back Papa Shango. I mean, I'm not letting that one go. But yeah, because I mean, my boys are 10 and 5 now, and wrestling doesn't hold that much appeal to them because it's this very athletic competition between two athletes, often their own name, wearing trunks. And I'm not sure it would have appealed to me at 8 years old, to be honest. No. I was drawn in by the characters, and then latterly I understood the athleticism. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt. And that's what I miss in wrestling. I miss, but there are out there. Cody Rhodes, he's out there doing it. I love, the way he brings his character out there and his flamboyant robes and all that stuff. And, there's a lot of wrestlers that take pride. Charlotte Flair still does it. I mean, it's just, I love that kind of old school mentality. And
I'd equate Cody Rhodes to a modern day Bret Hart. As in, he has all of the incredible entrance and the rock and roll style that you'd expect from a superstar, but then between the ropes, he just delivers each and every time.
Right. No doubt. And I mean, and when you mention people like them, like Bret Hart and all this, and then you're looking at Cody Rhodes and you're looking at Charlotte Flair, look where they come from. Cody Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes, third generation, with Dustin and Dusty and Cody, and then you're looking at Ric Flair and Charlotte Flair. I mean, it's just they still got that. They still got some old school mentality in them. I love it.
And that's what I'm interested because you were, you mentioned them briefly at the start, but it was the Morellas that really kind of got you your break, wasn't it? It was Gorilla and Joey that really. So how did that relationship come about? Did you grow up with Joey?
Yeah, we lived in the same town in New Jersey, so we lived 5 minutes away. I went to school with Valerie, his sister. And then we played baseball, for Willingboro and stuff, and played sports. He went to a different high school, but so, and then I used to work for Victor and Gorilla Monsoon when they owned a ring when I was 15, 16 years old. I used to do it in the summer times and on the weekends, local, Philadelphia Spectrum, Salisbury, Maryland. We used to do like Jersey Shore in the summer times in the convention center. So, and like, that's when Andre was on the card and, so, I mean, I would make like $50 set up the ring, $50 taking road, $50 timekeeping, $50 playing music. And Tony Chimmel would be announcing or doing something else. And then like you'd make $200 doing that. And then Victor would, this is when Gorilla owned a territory from Vince Sr. This is before Vince just owned everybody. Bruno Sammartino in Pittsburgh, Gorilla in New Jersey, before he took over everything. Then eventually, Vince went down south and took over WCW eventually some years later. So, at that point, it was like 83, 80, somewhere around 83, 84. And then, they said, oh, you got to sell programs. And I'm like, programs? I'm like, they're $1 programs. I'm like, how much am I making off the dollar? Oh, 10 cents off the dollar. Well, then I would go out and sell 3,000 programs.
Wow.
And if you take 10 cents off the dollar, I made $300 selling
Yeah.
programs. Like before the show, intermission, and on the blood. And I'd be like, hell yeah, I'll sell programs. I was making $500 a night.
Wow.
So I had 4 cars by the time I was 17 from wrestling and working another job. And then, my father got sick in 84. He took a massive stroke. He didn't pass away, but he kept the family's whole, but he couldn't provide that much for the family anymore. I had to get a full-time job. So I was working in a machine shop and welding. I was doing welding my senior year and stuff and working after like a certain day at 12 noon, you get out as a senior and then you go work all day from 1 to 8, 1 to 9. So I worked a machine shop and then I was making good money, but I was like, man, I got to make more money. So I went back into wrestling, asked Gorilla if he can get me back in and Joey, and they did. So it was awesome from there.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, and it took off right from there. Yeah.
And
Terry Garvin signed me a contract, and I did a first year. They put me on the road with Chimmel for 1 year full. Chimmel was already, he was with the company 38 years, and he got released the same year I did. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask about that. So there's a coincidence between the two of us is April 15th, 2020. So That was the day that you were released from WWE after 31 years of the company. I was also over here in the UK, let go from my job on April 15th, 2020 at the start of the COVID cutbacks. Yeah, exactly the same day as you. Working in PR, same thing was happening, just suddenly just huge concerns about the economy. And
we got a lot in common, Ben.
We've got a lot in common, my friends. And I actually spoke to Matt Cardona about this because he was on that same raft of cuts that WWE did on that day. Right. When I spoke to him, he actually said he felt relief because he could see it coming and he actually wanted out of his contract. But what was that experience like for you, Mike, having been with that company for 3+ decades?
Yeah, for 35 years I was with them. So I mean, yeah, it was a kicker, man. It was a kick in the ass. It was a shock. I thought they would talk about, because they were talking about cutting pays. And I did make quite a few in my department, probably more in my department for being the referee. But for 35 years I still didn't make money like some of the boys did. We weren't getting royalties, we weren't getting this. But I was making good money. So I mean, it was a great run. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's nothing I regret what I did for 3.5 decades in the professional wrestling industry, man, and traveled over 50 different countries and a lot of countries over and over and all throughout the countries, like the UK itself. Missed the banoffee pie, by the way, over there in the UK.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, so it was a kick in the ass, man. And, it was a kick in the ass for Tony Chimmel, too, because we're like, holy shit, like, we're 50-something years old and we're thinking, man, you release us at this time, and now we got to go work the fucking indies and the independents and stuff. And we're like, holy shit, like, is there a coaching job for us? Is there something, for me? Or, and Tony Chimmel as well, I felt bad for him as well, too. It's like, it just, Mark Gayton was 30 years there. Anybody after 30, 32 years usually gets the cut pretty, and I've seen it before. I can't say I was the only one in the business because it happened to my friend Mark Gayton and quite a few other guys, 30, 32 years in the business, boom, gone, for no reason at all.
That's hard because, of course, you're also entering into a time where you say about, do I get indie bookings? But going back to April 2020, there were no indie bookings. There was nothing. It wasn't allowed. So you've also got that worry of, how do I, look after myself and my family's finances?
Right. Well,
but at the same time,
you save your money. You save your money pretty well for 35 years. You got to be smart in this business because you never do know when the time has come. So,
yeah.
And there was always a stash bank for me, man, for quite a few years. So, and then, the podcast came up.
Yeah.
Conrad and Ad Free Shows reached out to me October of 2020. And been working for him for 3 years and just doing other podcasts and signings and virtuals and stuff like that. So it's been great. It's been nice, part-time. Am I working from home a lot more than When I used to, yeah, I'm not used to it. It's kind of driving me a little bit crazy.
Is it?
So, but here in Florida, there's a lot to do. So we do a lot of stuff. Me and my wife in Florida. There's a lot of things to do in Florida. So, and the weather's great all year round. So, but I'm keeping myself busy with a lot of signings and bookings and having fun with Paul Bromwell on ad-free shows, Money Mailbag. So we have a blast doing that show. We talk about everything, of course, wrestling, sports, sex and drugs and rock and roll. Like I was mentioned to you, we talk food. We talk food around the world, traveling around the world, and all the great times. So yeah, and the podcast is going great. So it's awesome.
Is that show and the feedback you receive from it, is that helping you to still feel really connected to the world of wrestling?
Yeah, it sure does. It actually does. And like I said, we talk wrestling, we talk everything. So, and Paul's been great because, he really coached me through a lot of stuff because I never did anything with podcasting before and stuff like that. So he's helped me tremendously. Really opened up. Me and him got this great connection, man. So he's been fantastic. He's actually coming down for the Rumble in a couple of weeks. So he's going to spend the weekend here for, a few days and have a good time. And we got a little bit of work for ad for you at the Rumble and had some signings to do and stuff like that. We'll have some fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And can you still enjoy the product as a fan? Can you enjoy something like the Rumble and just observe and enjoy it now?
Yeah, it's enjoying it, but sometimes it's hard, man. Sometimes when you see a referee that doesn't do their job in there, I always like to see some Dan Engler, Charles Robinson, Chad Patton, Dan Engler. Of course, John Cone don't referee no more. And Jason and some other guys, and even the girls. It's just hard to see. Like sometimes on AEW, like they got some good referees too, but it's hard to sit there and go, damn, like why ain't this referee doing that? Why isn't this referee doing that? Definitely like I like to see Charles doing main events still. I'd like to see him before he gets let go, or not let go, but maybe step down to do another position because he still does production. But I like to see him still doing some main events and stuff, before the end of his career is what I'm saying,
Yeah, I met Charles when he was over in Cardiff for Clash at the Castle. He was reffing the main event there, Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns match. But I met him wandering around Cardiff wearing his Wham t-shirt, just loving life and just loving being over there. But great guy and incredible, much like you, incredible career which has gone through so many eras and generations. There's just been such an evolution in the product, hasn't there, in the time you've been involved with it?
And that was a fantastic match too. And then Charles did a great job. And that's the thing too. Like, when I was sitting there, we were all watching it. We were actually doing something for ad-free shows in Chicago. I'm calling the spots. I'm like, Charles going to take a bump here. Get ready. Looks like he's taking a bump here. It's taking too long to develop. He takes a bump. And then they did get me on a swerve a little bit, one piece of swerve. But I thought they actually were going to give it to Drew, but they really swerved it.
Oh, really?
That was a great match. So
yeah, that was. The atmosphere and that was incredible. I think all of us in our heart knew that it wasn't coming home, but there was a moment where you just thought, "Oh, maybe." Because
maybe.
Again, you go back to SummerSlam 1992. You think of a Davey Boy Smith pop, and you think it's right there. You've just got to give him that win, and you're going to get 80,000 people or whatever it was again. Get that moment, but it wasn't to be, and here we are 1,000 odd days into the Roman Reigns era and counting.
Exactly, yep, and counting.
I wanted to ask you, Mike, about so you were let go in April 2020, but it was only a few months later that you'd turn up on AEW Dynamite and ref a few matches. So you refed Cody Rhodes, the Scorpio Sky match, and a Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy match, and then you made a few appearances since over the last couple of years. Well, two questions really. Who made the call to invite you over to AEW, and why have we only seen you appear a few times on AEW TV since?
Man, that's a good question. Cody Rhodes was trying to get me in AEW, and unfortunately, not too long after that, he was kind of almost on his way out, having issues with himself. And then it built up to where, bam, he's gone. WWE back. I didn't see that coming at first.
That was a shock.
If it wasn't for Cody, there wouldn't be another industry. I know Tony Khan had the money and he had the backing and stuff, but you needed somebody like Cody Rhodes And what he did for all the boys in the professional wrestling business, I mean, he should be a god to everybody, to them, most at some point, because he opened up the gates, man, opened up a door for somewhere else to go. Because if you just had the WWE to go to, you're a lot of talent would be shit out of luck, So, I mean, look at now what, he started with Tony Khan there, and Chris Jericho is doing a phenomenal job there too, as well, of course. But I remember Cody was really trying to push me to get in, but somehow it just didn't work. And then Dean Malenko was even pushing me a lot, and a lot of agents over there, So it was weird. It's just weird how they didn't sign me or anything. So not like I fucked up or screwed up or anything, And it's just like with WWE. I mean, I didn't screw up any matches because when I got released, I was still on injured reserve. I had surgery on my shoulder. So I was still out for 6 months getting ready to come back for WrestleMania. Then WrestleMania with the COVID and everything went down and all that stuff. And then they released me on the 15th. So,
do you think did that factor into it? Do you think, or did you ever get a reason?
No reason. No reason. It was just Carano said something about his department was falling apart and everything, and he had to make cutbacks. But I was the only referee that got let go. But there was a lot more talent that day that got let go too.
It's Ben Veal here, host of Wrestling Life. This show is all about real talk from the talented individuals who shaped wrestling's past, present and future. And when it comes to honouring wrestling's past, I have to give a quick shout out to the great team and our friends at BigBlueCage.com. Big Blue Cage Wrestling Store is your one-stop online shop for some truly awesome wrestling gear. Big Blue Cage's replica championship belts include the very best designs from the Golden Era, New Generation and the Attitude Era, including the much beloved Winged Eagle belt, the iconic Intercontinental Championship, which in my humble opinion is the greatest belt design of all time, the Attitude Era Big Eagle, and even the Big Gold belt, all available either in CNC or deep hand-etched plates and with real leather straps. And that's not all. Big Blue Cage are also the exclusive stockists of other old school items that I absolutely love, including WWF, WCW and old school Hasbro sock sets, and the one accessory that every wrestling fan's car needs, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage wiper blades. It's time for the mega powers to explode once again. With UK and worldwide delivery options available and custom designs accepted, head on over now to BigBlueCage.com. Yeah, I remember it's funny because it's bittersweet because obviously I was wrapped up in my own world and had a couple of young kids and just lost my job and terrified about what I was going to do. But I do remember looking at the news that day and seeing this raft of legendary names had all been released by WWE, and I don't know, maybe there was a cathartic kind of feeling that I wasn't in this on my own. But I remember seeing your name and being, really shocked. Just because you're, to me, you were WWE, and I guess. But as you say, there's chapters in life, aren't there? You had an incredible run there. I mean, you couldn't have been more part of more moments if you possibly tried. I mean, we reeled some of them off at the start of the show. I mean, was there ever a bigger match that you've reffed than Hulk Hogan, The Rock, WrestleMania 18 Toronto?
Oh, God, there's so many of them, and for each of their own, the Rock and Hogan match, man, it was just icon against icon, and one passing the torch to the other, Hogan passing it to Rock, and the entrance and everything, and just with the old school shove off and the old school tackle and all that and stare down in the beginning. It was just, they had him right from the entrance.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. The phenomenal crowd reaction was just unbelievable. And it was only like 67,000 people. It wasn't like 80 or 90. And it was in this big dome and you couldn't even hear yourself think. It was like, crazy, man. I had goosebumps in the ring. And then there's so many other matches with The Undertaker and Shane at WrestleMania. so many with Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Boston Garden.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take away from all those other matches that are phenomenal. Mike Tyson was the enforcer. You had, back in the days where did Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle in Seattle, WrestleMania, and just so many other matches I've done. It's just, I just hate to always say like, oh, Rock and Hogan was the only match. Because there's so many other incredible matches. I
mean, what was you were there in the ring for that moment with Brock landing on his head.
Yeah.
I mean, and then that match suddenly had to carry on. I mean, what's your role as a referee? How did you help with the last few moments of getting that where it needed to be?
Just kept checking on Brock and just kept checking on him, making sure he's right. I mean, he forced through that whole thing on his own, man. It's just he's just a strong, powerful individual, man, an athlete like you wouldn't believe. So, and with this weight coming down on his neck like that, doing that shooting, oh my God,
that would have broken the neck of anyone else, wouldn't it?
Probably would have, man.
Yeah.
Probably, and got to remember, Kurt Angle was banged up. He needed neck surgery in that match.
Yeah, that's the irony, isn't it? That he went in as the injured one and came out as the one looking after Brock.
Right, exactly. So I mean, them two, man, were just phenomenal athletes. Just a lot of moments, you see in the ring, and you never, there's a lot of matches I've done over the years, and many, many years, and you think, wow, that became one of the iconic matches of all time. So this one became a legendary, iconic match of all time. It's like, man, it's just great to be a part of it. It's just great to be part of it, and glad I didn't fuck up any matches, right? To make the match look stupid, because, referees got to get in there and do their job only, and do their job right. So,
I mean, it's long been commented on about the placement of a Rock Hogan match. But did you know going into that show just how insane that crowd reaction was going to be, and the face turn and everything that happened that night?
No, Ben, the company didn't know either. I mean, that's why the match wasn't on last. They were kind of iffy, like Jericho ran around the whole day saying that match should be fucking last.
Really?
This is Jericho. Yeah, this is Jericho 20 years ago, 21.
And getting his first main event spot at Mania, which you would think he'd been campaigning for.
With Triple H for the titles, right? Stephanie, it was like, and I remember Jericho saying that match should be on fucking last, because I mean, if anybody was going to probably know that Canadian crowd was Chris Jericho, I mean, and he was right, because after that match, I think there was like the women's match. Then there was another match, and then the ending match where it was a women's, and then
that poor women's thray. That was a tough crowd.
The crowd was just, I mean, the energy was just sucked out of the crowd, and if that match was last, the energy sucked out of the crowd, and they go home happy, or mad, with The Rock went over. I don't know, but they all cheered for The Rock when he went over too as well. They got back with The Rock. They healed on him, then got back with him, healed on him, got back with him. It was a great match, man.
Am I right in saying that you had to actually be the one to give Hulk the news that he was turning face whilst he was out there in the ring?
Well, I mean, they kind of knew it. Yeah, it's just they kind of,
Well, he knew, doesn't he? He knows the crowd, doesn't he? He knew what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, he knew. He probably knew. Oh shit! I got to turn freaking baby face and back in the yellow trunks, and I am the real.
Well, he kept the beard at least, didn't he? He went yellow and red, but he was like, "I'm still keeping the beard.
I'm still keeping the beard, right?" But he probably knew, like, oh shit, Vince sees money in another way, so But I mean, look at Hogan too. I mean, what was he, 50, 52 in that match? Looked incredible. Fucking incredible, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, for 50, 52 years old at that time, he looked fantastic,
Well, look, that leads me on to another question of people who seem to defy age. I mean, so after your AEW spell, you had the honor of being the referee for Ric Flair's last match last year. I know you were personally invited by Rick to do that, weren't you?
Yes. He got in touch with Conrad Thompson, and Conrad Thompson got in touch with me, so we reached out. Yep.
What did that mean to you?
That was great. That was an awesome feeling. I mean, I know Charles Robinson was probably a little butthurt by, and I wish Charles was there, man, because, it sucked that the WWE let him come do it, so.
Really?
It would have been fantastic, man. I mean, and
Little Nate.
I take a bump, near the end of the match, a super kick, So I'm outside the ring and I'm done for the night, and they had this other referee come in, and it was just like, man, do you imagine if that was Charles coming in on the run to save the day with Ric Flair? Fuck, the crowd would have went nuts, man. I mean, the place would have just erupted.
Yeah, and that would have meant the world to Charles as well, wouldn't it?
It would just told the whole story. You know what I'm saying? It would have told the whole story, just finished it off real nice with Charles coming down there, and I just think that would have been really great for the show, but it didn't happen. So, but it all worked out, and it was just it was great to see Rick just do it. I don't know if this is the last match. I mean,
who knows? He probably doesn't know. No.
I mean, it's like I always said on my podcast, they said, "You think Taker's done?" I said, "Nah, he looks like in phenomenal shape.
Yeah,
he looks great, and if the money's right, he could do one more. Just make sure he goes the fuck over. I mean, great, I mean, Taker doesn't need to be putting anybody over anymore. I mean, shit, he should have his record should have been undefeated anyway at WrestleMania.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, WrestleMania lost a lot of magic as soon as that moment. I remember I was there with two friends watching. I have the same three friends. We watch WrestleMania every single year together, and obviously at home. I'm actually going to my first live WrestleMania this year in Philly, which I cannot wait for.
Okay.
We were watching together, and we were paying half attention. We weren't even. I remember there had been certain matches in the streak, like the Randy Orton match and the Edge match, and there'd been a few to Amber Batista where I really felt, oh, this could be the year. I remember we were just kind of chatting and paying half attention to the match, having coffees, and just heard one, two, three. What? What? So we were the same as that guy who was immortalized. Like, we just weren't. And I think that's the general feeling, isn't it? I get the business rationale for it and the network launch and that shock factor.
Yeah,
but
you look like me when I first got to London, wanted to do some shows, and I had to bring some ring parts out. I get to London, Heathrow, and I'm like, holy shit, like London's as big as New York. I'm thinking, and I'm on the phone in Piccadilly Square, this Holiday Inn or something. And I'm trying to call her. She's like, just take the tube. I'm like, man, isn't there a train or something I could just hop on? Or, she's like, just take the tube, love, the tube. I'm like, what, like the Jetsons? You get in a tube and you shoot over there or something?
That's it, yeah.
She's like, no, love, the train. They're like the train station.
The subway.
I'm like, oh, the subway. I'm like, why did you just say that? What's the tube? She goes, that is the subway.
It's not much different. Although New York is a far easier place to navigate. I can say that in London. New York's very intuitive.
I had a great time in London.
And that's one of the great things about your role, isn't it? I mean, you've seen the world, haven't you, as a referee?
Man. I mean, I haven't seen the whole world. There's a lot of world to see out there, but I've been to at least over 50 different countries, and I was the person that just didn't plant my foot in an airport and say, okay, I was in Frankfurt, Germany, or I was in, if I would all over Germany, all over UK, all over Ireland. I mean, my first tour in the 80s was over in Belfast, Ireland, so that was my first show. Yeah. And they're like, mate, you got to put your crucifix away. You can't wear this. You can't do that. Yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, who do I got to look out for? Like, you got to look out for the Protestants. And if you're if you're Catholic, you're in a Protestant area, you're going to get the back of your kneecap blown out, mate. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I'm like, holy shit. I had to get a book on Michael Collins and the IRA just to read up on shit. Like, what's going on here, man? And it was, we were staying at the Europa Hotel, bomb scares all the time. It was, it's incredible. It's just incredible to learn history. I mean, I could have went to college, right? But 4 years or 8 years of college would have never taught me what I learned on my own, traveling all over the world, around the world and stuff. And it's just amazing because I'm a very big history buff. So I like history, and there's so much history in the UK and all the European countries, which is phenomenal. Castles that I've been to and all the places. And it's just the great food and stuff like that all over everywhere. I mean, London, man, we used to have a great time in there. Me and my wife, we love London too, as well. So, I mean, we used to go to, I remember in the 80s we used to go to Stringfellas, this place called Stringfellas.
Yep. Eye-opening night for you and your wife.
I remember. No, not me and the wife. It was just this was me and the boys back in the
That made more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. This is when like even Hercules was around and all that. He took somebody in that club and tossed him, press land him.
Oh wow. That's some wild nights.
Oh, we had some wild nights in the UK, mate. Yeah, some good times, man. So but,
I mean, when it comes to kind of wrestling friendships, I mean, it's often said that, if you leave the wrestling business with a handful of friends, you've succeeded. I mean, who have you remained closest to, kind of talent wise, within the locker room since leaving
like
WWE?
Rey Mysterio and stuff like that. Jack Swagger, he's Jake Hager now over at AEW, and Primo and Eddie Colon, and a bunch of the boys still keep in touch. Of course, it's just we don't see each other as much, but there's a lot of guys that live here in Tampa, Florida, which I get to catch up with a lot of the talent. So it's nice to see them guys here too, because we're all a lot of people live in Florida.
Yeah, well, not a bad place in the world to live, is it, really? Let's be honest. I'm recording this on a very, very cold, dreary day in the UK, so quite envious. This episode of Wrestling Life is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Legacy Sports Nutrition. Take your physical and mental performance to the next level with Test X9, the natural testosterone booster. Clinically proven, Test X9 from Legacy Sports Nutrition is NSF certified, third-party lab tested, and made in the US of A. And it's brought to you by friends of the show, 3-time world champion Nick Aldis and 10-time world champion Mickie James. Nick developed and uses these products himself, so they work, and he shows you how over at legacysubs.com, with links to clinical studies on each of the 9 key ingredients. No bull, no bro science, just facts. It's time to level up your strength, energy, libido and drive now with Test X9 from Legacy Sports Nutrition. And if you want to really level up, go for the ultimate test stack, adding T-Assist, a pro-grade estrogen inhibitor and test enhancer, and the best-selling sleep aid Recovery PM, and discover why improving your sleep is the key to unlocking your mental and physical potential. So stop settling for average. Go to legacysubs.com now and use the promo code WrestlingLife for 10% off your entire order. That's promo code WrestlingLife. And if you subscribe to have it shipped every 30 days, you can still get the discount every single time. So head on over now to legacysubs.com and level up with Legacy. I mean, how does it feel when you hear people say, you are the referee of our childhood? We were speaking off air, weren't we, about how I met you when I was like 12 years old backstage at an event in the Birmingham NEC when I met Bret Hart. That must be quite strange that you've got a lot of kids that were there for those formative moments who are now dads in their own right and stuff.
I mean, Ben, it's a great feeling. I mean, look, like I got gray hair now, you got gray hair, and no, but it's a great feeling. I mean,
I think you're aging more gracefully than me, my friend, to be honest.
Nah, it's all good. But I mean, it's a great feeling when people say that, and like I get noticed a lot, like whether I'm at just the grocery store or here at a restaurant, the cooks, and a lot of people come out of the woodworks and go, "Hey, man, you were the referee of my childhood," So I actually
do you have to walk around with your 8x10s just in your pocket, just ready to dish out.
So I mean, it is a great feeling, man. It's to be recognized as just a referee in the business and be recognized as you were just a referee is an awesome feeling. I mean, because when you're a referee, you don't get the star power, the star talent, or the push the wrestlers get, and to hear that, the respect and stuff like that comes out of all the fans is phenomenal. It's just the kind words you hear and stuff like that. You hardly ever hear any negative things, when they talk about your referee and back in the day with the mullet and, you had the
mullet. Yeah.
Oh, I love the mullet. It's like, can you grow the mullet back? No, I'm not growing that mullet back.
It's back in fashion, I think now, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it probably is. It all right. Yeah, bell bottoms, corduroy jeans, and
yeah. But the thing is, you're not just a referee, as I said. You are the third component in sports entertainment. You are not there to, this is a predetermined event. You are there to help tell the story, aren't you? You're not there for the rules. Right. You are so essential. I think that's a bit that's overlooked, and certainly as a fan, I didn't pay attention until I watched back years later the likes of you and El Hebner and Charles Robinson, and
Right.
the
Right.
the moments when you suddenly inject your personality into it, whether it's shoving the wrestler back or kicking them off the ropes or
Right.
the count, it's and then the cadence of your count, of course.
Right. Right.
There's so much to the art form, isn't there?
Yeah, there is very much. I mean, I took a lot of pride in the cadence and the counts, especially the false finishes coming towards the end of a match. If you can get those people up off their seats, like all of the floor seats and people in the arena, which I used to do many times, and used to 1, 2, and kick. I'd be like, kick, and we'd get it so close, me and the talent. And man, it was just, and when people just rise off their seats and thinks that's the finish of the match, like it made me feel great, man. I was like, yeah, like we got him.
I guess that's your equivalent of a finishing move, isn't it? As you hitting your finishing spot, that near full.
Right. Yeah. All the false counts, man. The 1, 2 kick out barely, and you're just, you're not hitting the mat. Like it just, when people, I used to tuck it. There's a certain way I used to do it. And I used to count really hard, 1, 2. And so when that 3 was coming down, and I'd swipe it under my, right underneath me and stuff. And just, I mean, I'd be literally touching the mat too, sometimes on some of these false finishes, but you wouldn't hear the pound. So it was just like, people would just, and it's just like, that's a great feeling as a referee.
Yeah.
It really, that means you're doing your job too. Pat Patterson always said, and I love Miss Pat dearly. He was always a huge mentor in my life in the business and great guy. And he's, I remember long years ago, I said, Pat, he goes, man, what a fucking match. Oh, the place went bananas.
Bananas.
Fucking great. He goes, he was like, what a fucking unbelievable match. And I said, man, you see the match, Pat? How did I do? He goes, oh, you did the match? I said, yeah. He goes, that's great. He goes, because I didn't even recognize you. He goes, like, the less you recognize a referee in the match, the more the referee's doing their job. And he explained that to me years ago. If you're not noticed in a match, that means the referee's doing their job, for sure. So
how does that balance out then with you hitting a people's elbow on Nick Patrick then?
No, that's it. That was total yeah, I get that. Yeah. And
you're 1-0 in a wrestling business, aren't you?
That let me tell you, like, I don't even know any other referees that's had a match like that or with that caliber of talent.
Yeah.
You had Nick Patrick as the referee. I had Jericho and The Rock on my side. And with Bubba and Devon Dudley, those are icons and all legends in the business, man. And to me, it's just
and you go over, you get the big W.
Yeah, and it's like, and I didn't have to get, I didn't have to do the job next week for Nick, or it was just like, boom, I got over. Put me over. That was a shock. When I came to TV that day, they're like, "Oh, Chioda, you're wrestling." I was like, "Wrestling, fucking what?" Like, "Oh, you got a match tonight." I'm like, "I got a fucking match. I ain't got no wrestling gear." They're like, "Yeah, your referee gear." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, and then Bubba's like, got to clothesline me later on in the match. He's like, "If you don't sell that son of a bitch, Chioda," he was like, "remember, you're a referee." I was like, I sold that shit all the way to the back, even during I was doing the people's elbow. I was still selling it. And I get back, I'm like, "Did I sell it enough, Bubba?" Because Bubba's like, "You fucking oversold that shit." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "No, I'm just kidding."
Yeah. I mean, there's clearly there's so much respect, isn't there? Clearly, that the boys had towards you. I mean, I've heard you speaking with Chris Van Vliet on his show. You were talking about how you were there for The Rock and Cena in 28.
Yeah.
I believe, but you weren't the ref for 29, the once in a lifetime, twice in a lifetime rematch. And you were saying to Rock, you didn't want to count him down for 3. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it was just like, Rock's like, "Hey, TG," he's like, "You got me?" I'm like, "No, man." I said, "Rock." He goes, "You don't got me?" I said, "You're not going over, bro. Why would I want to count your shoulders 3?" And it was just like, we popped, and I was like, "Hey," But I mean, the first one was great, and that's kind of, it's weird, missing The Rock, and he went to Hollywood and he came back, and John Cena was running the road hard for 10 years, for a decade, and he was on top of the business, really making money for the company. And then for him to come, Rock came in, there was a little tension there, and there had to be paybacks for that, and he had to give at least Cena his moment the next year,
Well, that had UK origins, didn't it? That was Cena speaking to the Sun over here in the UK, a pretty off the cuff comment about The Rock, and that would sow the seeds for this.
Yeah.
Lots of tabloid. And I can't remember exactly. I know it was something along the lines of talking about how The Rock had kind of. I believe it was about how he turned his back on his family, the WWE family, and that he'd gone off to Hollywood. I think it was something along those lines, and it was an off-the-cuff comment, which I don't think was supposed to lead anywhere. And years on, that would become the catalyst for that feud.
Look where The Rock is at now. It's just.
Well, look where they're both at. I mean, you've shared the ring with half of Hollywood these days, haven't you? Really,
right. Cena's doing like voiceovers for car dealerships. He's doing this. He's doing movies. Shows. It's awesome. It's great to see the talent move on to Hollywood, man, because these guys are great, man. They're hard workers, and it takes a lot of dedication to do what they do.
As you say, they're born entertainers who know how to read a live crowd, respond to it, and there's no art form like professional wrestling, which is exactly why I love it. I have this show and I love speaking to people like you, because this has given me, 35 years and counting of joy and escapism and friendship and memories. And I don't think you can say that about any other sport or form of entertainment, really.
Yeah. I always said that too. Like, I was like, damn, Rock was like, you had Andre the Giant passing the torch to Hulk Hogan. Hogan passed it to The Rock. Rock took the torch and took it to Hollywood. And then
came back.
John Cena lit the torch, and then The Rock comes back and blows that torch out.
It's just the cyclical nature of wrestling, isn't it? But I wanted to ask you, before, conscious of your time, before we wrap up. You said, I believe, at the time of doing the Ric Flair's match, that was kind of the bookend to your wrestling career, or at least that's what I've seen has been said about it.
No, there was a little bit of confusion on, like, wasn't really the end of my career, but it probably at this point probably would be maybe the last most important match I did in my career. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless WWE calls me back or somebody else does, but at this point, that's probably one of the last most for my book, because I am in the process of writing a book. So,
fantastic.
It's like, okay, what was your most important last match of your career? Well, I got to say it was Ric Flair with Jeff Jarrett and those guys, Andrade and Jay Lethal. And we had a great time in that ring. And all those guys were phenomenal workers still. Look at all, still Jeff Jarrett. Look at, he's phenomenal.
Oh, it's a machine.
Yeah, he was a machine that night. He was fired up too. And I'm going, holy shit, Jeff, you're the same age as me. You still fucking got it, bro.
Yeah.
Was fucking revved up, fired up. And of course, Jay Lethal's one hell of a worker, and Andrade is phenomenal too as well. So that's probably, for my book, at this point, that was probably one of my final matches in my career.
What are your hopes for when your book will be out? And is that telling the story of your life as a referee?
It's gonna be telling the life and story and everything from all the way from the scratch all the way up. So it'll say everything,
Cannot wait to read that.
Yeah. I can't wait till it comes out.
So what's I guess it's always a hard question to ask this, but what do you feel your legacy is as a referee, Mike? Like, for anyone that's thinking of breaking into the business, wanting to become a referee, kind of wanting to follow in your footsteps, is there any advice you'd give in terms of what you've learned along the way?
Yeah, there's so much to learn about being a referee. There's just not going to grasp it in a short amount of time. It takes quite a while. You have to work with quite a few different talents to really grasp, because there's so much talent that works different. Every baby face works different. Every heel works different. But just be humble, listen, make sure you apply the rules. There's just so much advice to give. You just got to be humble, and you got to be ready to travel. They don't travel as much as we used to, but you got to sacrifice a lot to give up, for your career. That's for sure.
And what do you feel you sacrificed in terms of
Oh, God.
personal life?
23 days a month, 25 days a month on the road for many, many years, but doing production and refereeing, traveling on the road. Gave up a lot of great holidays. There was birthdays you weren't there for. There was weddings you couldn't make. There was funerals you couldn't make on certain occasions when you're in Europe, and you can't really get somebody to replace you right away, and so forth. And it's just there's a lot of things you sacrifice, man, when you're on the road that long. That's for sure.
It's a tough life. It's a life you're sacrificing yourself to entertain the families of others, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean,
in many regards.
I don't want to put it. It's almost something like with the military, how you're not home for 6 months or you're not home for a long period of time. I mean, God bless the military is doing a totally different job. That's for sure. Protecting the world and protecting your countries. But I'm saying like just being on the road, it was just, it's just a lot of issues. It's hard for a woman to take care of the household and all that, or some of you have to have home and strong and be strong for you when you're on the road that many days a month, pay the bills, do this, do that, take care of this, take care of the kids, whatever. So it's just, there's a lot of sacrifices. You got to, even in sports entertainment. I mean, wrestling goes all year round, Ben, like it's not like, here in America, football goes on for 4 to 6 months. Baseball is a certain, all sports are for a certain amount of games, 80 games a year, 82. But then, wrestling, that's all year round.
Yeah.
All year round, nonstop.
Yeah. I was speaking to Brock Anderson recently and saying about how, we were talking about there being no off season.
Right.
I was like, I can't understand why Christmas and New Year isn't an off season. I feel like there should be 2 weeks a year where the touring talent just get to be with their families. I know it's a tradition in America to have the Christmas shows and the Boxing Day show at Madison Square Garden and things like that. But to me, I just feel like that's the time to run your best of the year content and let the talent have a break. But it's cultural and it's COVID aside, that's really the only time that it's ever been
when
possible
you're
and probably ever will be.
Yeah, because you're thinking it just comes down to a money factor at that point. They run Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, and all those venues are probably anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million house. Each. So, and they were like, oh, okay, we can book these 3 shows and make $3 million plus merchandise.
Very hard. Very hard when Christmas is a guaranteed money pit for people buying presents. But I understand the business rationale. I just wish as a fan that there was a bit more off time for the talent that works so hard all year long. Look, I'm going to wrap this up here with one final question, which is, you've mentioned the book. You're keeping very busy with Paul Bromwell and your excellent podcast.
That's correct.
What's next for Mike Chioda? Surely there's got to be at some point the Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame needs to start recognizing the referees, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that Tim White got inducted.
Yeah,
that was long overdue too as well.
Mm.
I'm hoping that time is for me soon. If it happens in Philadelphia, it would be fantastic. That's where it all kind of started, in South Jersey, Philadelphia. I used to always push for it a little, years ago, and always, like say shit to the writers or certain people. Joey Morella. I like to see him get in there.
A lot of fans would. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to see Earl in there. I mean, I wish Timmy was still around. As far as getting inducted, but God bless him. He was a great guy to me, a mentor as well. Did so many things in the business, Timmy. And he so well deserves it to be in the Hall of Fame. And, I think Earl deserves it. I'd like to see Joey, mostly because he was the, original referee from, the Hogan days. I mean, always got this right here, right at the, right here. I'll never forget it. So, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but not going to sweat it. But yeah, I'd love to be in Hall of Fame. I mean, I'm not going to put myself on the Rushmore or whatever, Mount Rushmore of, referees. I let the fans decide that.
I'll put you there.
I appreciate
You're on mine.
Yeah, Rock actually said he'd put me there too. That was great to hear that from the Rock. So
yeah,
but anyway.
Well, there you go. It doesn't get much better than the Rock, does it? Let's be honest.
Well, and you too, Ben. I appreciate it, man.
I like to think I'm right in the same category as the Rock. Yeah. Well, I'm really appreciative of your time. I mean, if you do get inducted in Philly, I'll be there cheering loudly from my back
That's
for
cool.
you. Just thank you for the memories. Thank you for your, sacrifices, dedication you put into this great sport that we all love.
You got it, man. I'll see you in Philadelphia. I'll be at WrestleCon. So yeah, we'll definitely have to get together.
Nice one.
All right.
Well, that's it for another Wrestling Life. Thank you to my guest, the referee of our childhood, Mike Chioda. Thanks to my producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions for bringing Wrestling Life to life. Thanks to all of you for joining us. We'll be back soon for more real talk from real talent. Until next time, be good to each other. If you can, pay it forward. And I'll see you soon. Bye.